Get the live stream going here, guys. There we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is what we call Licensing Playbook Live. We do it almost every Wednesday, and this is a new series called Power Mindsets. Over 9 weeks, we'll teach you how to think like a successful inventor. Kevin Prince, Kevin, raise your hand there. Hey, Kevin. He's a patent agent and founder of QuickPatents, who will join us to explore the essential mindsets that top innovators share. Our very own successful inventor, Stephen Key. Stephen, raise your hand there. Hey, Stephen. Will be presenting alongside Kevin. Kevin and Steve will be presenting every Wednesday during this series. This week's topic is, it's a mouthful. Some big words, people. Pragmatic skepticism. Those are all words that you guys know. You guys are smart. The mindset that helps you question everything while moving forward. Learn how to challenge assumptions and test feedback, separate wishful thinking from real opportunity without losing motivation, and stay passionate and practical as you bring your idea to life. I like that, passionate and practical as you bring your idea to life. That's not two words you normally see together. My name is Andrew Krauss. I co-founded InventRight with Stephen Key 26 years ago. We've been doing this for 26 years, over 2.5 decades. Long, long time, right, Stephen? I'm going to be your moderator tonight. This weekly webinar is your go-to guide for learning how to license your product ideas to companies that are actively looking for innovation, which these days are most companies. Back when we started 26 years ago, I think there was a lot less. There's a lot more now. So feel free to ask questions in the chat or by digitally raising your hand here on Zoom. If you're watching us, because we're streaming to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, if you're on any of those platforms, type your questions in the chat. I pay very close attention to those. We're not usually able to get to everybody's questions, but we get to a few. So please welcome our presenters today, Kevin Prince and Stephen Key, or whichever side they're on. So, hey, everybody.
Howdy. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, and I want to welcome everyone. Once again, I'll repeat what I've said a couple times. I've known Kevin for probably 20 years now, and his success rate with his clients that are filing intellectual property are really high. And I know that because I asked a lot of patent practitioners, from patent agents to patent attorneys, can you give me examples of your successful clients? And Kevin, they really struggled with that question, and I don't know why. And you had a laundry list of people, and I was able to interview them on our YouTube channel, InventRight TV, and that was very helpful. But uh, I knew right away when Kevin came to me and said, Steve, we need to talk about something that's not really being talked about, and it's really about the mindset of successful inventing. And I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense, especially since I'm working on a project with Kevin and some other people. And if it wasn't for this one gentleman's mindset, it probably never would have got done. It's just too big and too difficult and too many people and too many headaches. Now, I know most of us won't have those type of headaches, but if you don't have the right mindset, I think you're going to get tripped up along the way. So that's why I think this is going to be a great series. And Kevin, once again, thank you for kind of pushing this to get this done. Yeah.
Yeah, well, my pleasure. It's just I noticed certain mindsets from my clients. I have about over 4,000 clients, and you kind of just get the sense of the ones that are going to really be able to take it forward, right? And the one that we're going to talk about today, I'm actually kind of excited about, even though it might be sounding a little opposite of what we've done in the last 2 weeks. But there's a real need to have pragmatic skepticism when you're pursuing an invention like this. And let's just get into it. Andrew, why don't you go ahead and go to the first slide.
There we go.
All right, yeah, go to the next one. We've talked about optimistic curiosity and relentless experimentation, like just don't give up. And that's all good. But there comes a time when you have to kind of rein that in a little bit and test your assumptions and different things to make sure that you're not the kind of client who is going to be so in love with his or her invention that they can't hear anything negative about it, right? I mean, I see that. It's like you tell them there's a lot of prior art. No, I'm just going to go through and get it done. Okay, that's fine, but you have to be pragmatic about it, because otherwise it opens you up to vulnerability, right? If you can't hear anything negative about your invention, and it's not personal, it's just you want it to be, when someone says something that's negative, just you got to weigh it and you got to test it and see if they have a point. So go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll talk about
Kevin, I would make the argument that it might not be negative. They might just be these terrible things called facts.
yes. Yes.
Information and facts.
Um, so there's a lot of reason for being able to step back and test some of these things. You just it'll help you avoid wasting money, which is probably the key thing. But also there's a very important thing called opportunity cost, right? And so if you're busy pursuing an idea that ultimately isn't going to be successful, you're wasting the time that you could be spending on an idea that is going to be successful. And that opportunity cost is maybe huge. I mean, you just don't know. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So here's the key thing about this. You want to question your assumptions. Everybody makes assumptions when they have an idea. They're like, oh, everyone is going to want this product, right? But you don't really know. And your friends and family's opinion don't count. And your opinion, in a way, doesn't count. You need to test whether or not that's actually true. And there's different ways you can do that, obviously. But the more third-party, disinterested people that you can get to weigh in on your invention, and especially if they're willing to whip out their credit card to buy one, I mean, that's when you start to see that it's not a guess, it's actually you've tested it and there is market demand. So and there's other ways of doing this, but one of the things I like about Kickstarter is, and if you don't know about Kickstarter, just go to kickstarter.com and you'll see it's ideas that don't yet exist, and people pledge money towards making those ideas a reality. Now, there's some problems with Kickstarter that you got to be careful about, but on this piece, I really like it, because if people are willing to pull out their credit card and donate $25 to your cause so that they can get one of your products, that's a great sign. And the more the merrier on that. So that's the kind of thing that you want to do here. I did that with an idea that I thought was pretty good. I was, going to Starbucks every day. They were always getting my order wrong. And so I came up with this reusable coffee cup sleeve. Now they give you free sleeves. Those cost probably less than half a cent, but 10 billion cups of coffee a day, that's going to add up. So I thought for sure they're going to like this idea. It's a two-part reusable sleeve. The outside sleeve is transparent, some kind of nice grippy silicone rubber. And then the inside sleeve is just printed paper, and it has your drink already printed on it. So you don't have to explain it to the cashier. You just say, I want a grande one of these, And the funny thing is that everyone at the store level really liked it. They're like, oh, this saves time. They would just put the cup in and put it on the counter for the barista. And this is going back about 10 years ago. Right now they have labels, and they've solved a lot of the problems that I was trying to solve here. But one of the big problems was the line at the cashier. If you had to give a complicated drink order, you just show them this, they could read it quickly, put a cup in there, ring you up, and then you're done. So my thought was, let's reduce the number of walkaways that, when you open the Starbucks door and you see 10 people in front of you in line, a lot of people just say, I don't need a coffee that bad. and they leave, right? So that was one thing. The other thing, of course, is with a reusable sleeve, you're helping the environment by not burning as many paper sleeves. And the other thing is, when the order's put down on the counter at the barista, you know which one is yours because it's your sleeve. So anyway, I liked the idea. Um, the people at the store level liked it. But as I pitched it to Starbucks, my idea was to license it to Starbucks. And Starbucks is a huge company. It's nearly impossible to get a company that big to want to do, anything like this. And getting even to the right people was very difficult. I did present it to them 3 times over about 5 years, because people go in and out of these positions. And they said no every time. They never told me why. But so I thought, well, you know what? If they're not going to license it, I'm just going to make these and sell them at Bed Bath and Beyond or something. And so I thought, well, I'll do a Kickstarter to see, if I can raise enough money to pay for the tooling and the first run of products. And I think my goal was $7,500. You can go to Kickstarter.com and search on my name and see the campaigns I've done. That's one of them. I think the goal was 7,500 and I raised 500. So that's when I realized, all right, people aren't willing to, actually shell out money for this. It's probably a $20 solution to a $2 problem. And that's when I said, all right, I'm going to give this one up and go on to my next one. So anyway, that's the story with that. I still learned a lot, and I still use it. I have one right here that is on my. Now this one says Dutch Bros, which is obviously a different company now, and they said no too, by the way. So anyway, I'm just using it now for myself. That's about all the benefit I'm going to get out of it. But yeah, if anyone has any questions on that whole thing, that was interesting. But what I learned was there's just not enough market demand, and certainly I couldn't get corporate's attention. So I went on to my next one. All right, let's go to the next slide. I think Stephen, you're up.
Yeah, what's really difficult about this, because sometimes when you're first starting out, you're just trusting your gut. And you love what you're working on, but you just don't know. I mean, who really knows? So, and do you ever really know? I think Kevin's right. The best way to find out is to make them and sell them. I mean, that's the ultimate test, right? That's the big test. But how do you do that? Sometimes you cannot do that. Kickstarter, great opportunity, a lot of exposure. There's some pluses and minuses with that, but I think it's a great way of testing. That's why it's very popular. And I think there's other ways to test ideas to see if there's interest. But at the end of the day, really the main interest is, will someone pull out, the money to purchase it? And that's kind of hard to test that. Some of the really big companies, the way they test it, I mean, you might fall in love with it, and maybe they did take it and they put money behind it. But those guys will always do a focus group. They'll spend a lot of money on that. There's no way they're going to roll out anything of any scale without doing multiple different tests in different regions and different territories, maybe different countries, to really see if it's going to give them the lift. And that's really smart to do. It is expensive. And there's things that we can do as inventors to do our own testing too. So let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, I love all my ideas, you guys. So, and some are just more profitable than others. It doesn't mean I love them any less. But at the end of the day, to pay the bills, you really want those ideas that will sell. But I believe if you can build it as fast as you can and test it and show it to people, that's the first thing I do. I get a gut reaction. And that's going to tell me a lot, but it still doesn't tell me everything. And that's okay, because most ideas, I think, if you have a very compelling story, a sell sheet, a video, they've got to trust their gut too a little bit, although they'll do some internal testing, I'm sure, maybe some focus groups. But at the end of the day, it's kind of a risk. But I think what's really important about this mindset, if you're always questioning along the way, there's a very good chance you're probably going to find probably one of your best ideas. Right. I mean, that's what we're really getting at here is that you're going to have a lot of ideas. And if you start loving every one and not really working on all of them, that's not practical. And you're going to pick a couple of them and maybe work on. But if you keep on questioning every step along the way, sooner or later, you're going to find that one that has less obstacles in my mind. Right. And a few of the obstacles, yes, of course, will it sell? Okay. Another one, can we make it? Okay. Can we make it at a price point that people might buy it for? These are all these other little tests along the way until people can actually purchase it. So I'm a big believer in let's see it, touch it, feel it, share it a little bit, but we still don't know for sure. And I don't know if we're ever going to know for sure, but there's other things you can do, and I'm going to get to those in just a minute. Next slide, please. Um, yeah, I think the reason why this is so important to me, it helps me choose the right idea. Because if you have a lot of ideas, like most of us, you love them all. Okay, so you have to be pretty choosy, and you're going to spend a lot of time and money on your ideas. So it's best to find the one that's going to give you the biggest bang for the buck. And Kevin said something I thought was really interesting too. If you work on an idea that's not going to return on time and energy, what is the opportunity cost? What are you losing? I don't think we ever think about that. If I spend a year on an idea, that's a year I didn't spend maybe on another idea. So not only am I losing money, spending time, I'm not knocking on that other door of opportunity. So I'm actually getting hurt twice. Um, I do believe too that all of us really love our ideas, and sometimes we're blinded by it. We just are. And sometimes being blinded is okay too, because sometimes to overcome some of the obstacles, you don't want to listen to others, and you keep doing it and you keep doing it. And I do have examples where I've been blinded and reached out to, I had this one idea I just absolutely loved. And I showed it to people that had a wow factor, and I knew nothing about manufacturing. I didn't really care, but I knew it had something. So I reached out to 100 companies. They all told me no. I didn't stop, but because one eventually said yes. So you have to be kind of careful when you're doing this. But I think if you start to question all your ideas, I think it's going to be really, really smart. You just have to be very practical and have a little of, questioning, or I hate to say have a doubting attitude. I don't really like that, but I think it's probably pretty important. Yes, I test early, I prototype cheaply, I seek honest feedback. I'm very concerned about cost. I've always have been. And then I look at, do I have enough green lights? And I told someone the other day, I finally learned after all these years something. Um, when you look at your ideas, there's going to be a few ideas that it feels like you're just pushing a rock up a hill. And there's ideas that I have learned that just roll down the hill. And I hate to say it's taken me decades to figure that out. That I have a tendency to pick ideas that I have to push up a hill. And because of that, doesn't mean I won't get it up the hill, but usually it takes me more time. There's a good chance it won't work. And even when I make it to the top, I won't sell that many. And I think by using this correct mindset will help you find the ideas that kind of roll down the hill, meaning there's just less obstacles. And there's things not in the way that are going to stop you to reach the largest audience to sell more products. So I think to be a little bit practical is smart. I know it's hard to do, and doubt what you're doing and questioning always, do you have the right solution to a problem, or is it even really a problem? Next slide, please.
Hey, can I ask you a question, Stephen?
Sure.
So, would you say it's a good thing to do all this stuff sooner rather than later? I mean, do it sooner rather than later, because sometimes people don't do this stuff until way, way down the road. We've seen that over 26 years a lot. But
And,
people want to be positive at the beginning, and they see this as being negative. But I think it's just
and
being real.
well, Andrew, what's really kind of interesting about this, we're so in love with our ideas that sometimes we're, like I said, we're blinded. And it's important to maybe be a little naive and blinded at times. But I saw an idea the other day from someone that it was a good idea and smart idea. And this gentleman was selling a lot of them, but he couldn't scale. And I asked him, what's stopping? I wanted to find out why he couldn't scale. And because he said he needed larger quantities to lower the price. And if he had to lower the price, he would sell more. That's what his logic was. But when he was so in love with this idea, I asked him why aren't you scaling? He said, well, I put it in a retail store and it didn't sell. And he said it was because it required education. People didn't know what it did on the store shelf. Well, that's really a big deal. That's not a little deal. That's a really big deal. That means everywhere he goes, he has to do a demo, and that can never scale. So, but what really bothered me was not that he was so in love with the one design. When I asked him, could he redesign it so it didn't require education? He said, yes.
Oh.
And I said, well, why wouldn't you redesign it then? Well, I kind of like it the way it is.
No, no, no.
I thought, that's incredible. So, so I said, and if he was being real practical here, kind of, I think I told him, I said, look, why don't you design one that doesn't require education, license it to companies, and have them sell more product for you, and they can scale because they'll lower the price, you'll sell more, and then do what you do that you love and sell them yourself. You have two different products. And that's just being practical and not being so much in love with one thing. So I
Mm.
think if you don't embrace this mindset, it can really stunt the growth of your idea, or sharing your idea with others, or never really selling as many as you want to. So
Yeah,
uh,
we had Mike Van Horst is one of our successful members, and he's listening live on LinkedIn. And he wrote, I learned very early on, is it a viable product? Is what you need to ask yourself. I
yeah,
think most go right past this part of it, he wrote. Is it a
right.
viable product? You know.
Yeah, and I'm also on a project now where the inventor is so determined that the product is right, that it's just going to work and sell, that um, you have to have that attitude, though. Don't get me wrong, but the only way to really know is do a test, and that hasn't been done yet. And I'm always worried that if you go too far down that road of thinking of great things without being practical, and if it goes wrong, it doesn't allow you to pivot or change. You've gone too far, and it's too costly. So it's something I think you should do earlier than later. Yeah. Next slide, please.
Another thing, Stephen, that comes to mind is that, and this was certainly true with my Sleeve Saver project, was that it was focused on one company, right? And that was Starbucks was the only, it was tailor-made for Starbucks. And so you're only going after one company. If they say no, you're dead in the water, you know?
Yeah.
And let me tell you about Starbucks open innovation policy. Okay, here's what their policy was. They opened up a website, which they've shut down about 10 years later in 2008. They opened up this website called My Starbucks Idea. And their idea of open innovation was all their rabid fans would give them the ideas for free. And And that's what they did. They got 150,000 suggestions and they launched about 100 different products as a result. And when you submitted an idea, you're giving it to them.
Yeah.
So that's what their idea of open innovation was. So, and they were big enough that they could kind of, bully people into that. So you
Yeah.
got to be careful if you're focused on just one company, like this is the perfect company to license this product. You really should have at least half a dozen that you can, be equally excited about.
Yeah, I think if you ask any successful entrepreneur inventor, they're going to tell you they made a lot of pivots.
Yeah.
Yeah, they started here and they ended up someplace else, and they were able to pivot. The successful ones were able to take the inputs, get the feedback, and pivot and change. I think you're going to see that over and over and over again. And the ones that did not change or pivot, you're probably going to see a group of people that probably didn't reach the goals they really wanted to reach.
Yeah. I
So
agree.
you really have to be, I think, open-minded a little bit, be
And
willing to
not
take some feedback,
and
test
not
if you
so in love
can.
with your idea that you just can't hear other options.
No, I know you probably hear a lot of that, Kevin, because you're at the front end of it, right?
Yeah.
I love this idea. I believe in it, but I haven't really done all this other stuff, but I'm going to start filing. But you have to too, right? I mean, so it's kind of like, so that's why provisional patent applications are pretty powerful tools. I know design patents are pretty affordable too. There's things that you can do so you don't go too deep too early. I think NDAs are pretty important. Maybe not disclose it. And there's other ways to test it. Yeah, I mean, there's some really clever way of testing the market. You have to be a little bit careful of all that exposure too, like Kickstarter. Uh, but the ultimate test is someone pulls out their wallet.
Yeah.
I mean but that's really hard to do. Okay. Uh,
Stephen, I think Kevin's making a very, very important point. If you only have one potential licensee, you seriously need to question whether you should be working on that project. Now, if you
yeah.
got your one favorite and you're like, well, but I'd have 16 others too, fantastic. But if it's only one, you're gonna do all that work and then they say no and you're dead in the water, like that's just kind of insane if you ask me. That's not a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, this emotional strength it does. It you want to keep going, but when the evidence says, "Hey, this is not the one," wow, that's a tough decision, isn't it? It's a hard one, and I see a lot of us struggling with that. But you don't have to completely give up. That's where you pivot. Take what you've learned, and if there's something else that's there, or maybe you do walk away from it and find that that's something else that you're really looking for. And that takes some emotional strength to do that, I think. Yeah, it's not easy to do that. Next slide, please. Yeah, the big benefit. Yeah, I think if you're going to walk away with one thing from this talk that we're having, if you have this mindset, it's going to really allow you to decide if that's the idea you really want to invest your time and money into, and and are you questioning it enough? Now, Kevin, when people ask you to do a search, they're questioning it, aren't they?
Repeat that, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, when someone says, "Hey, I've really got this idea and I really like it, I think it's going to be a big idea, but I want you to do a patent search
Yeah,
and then a do evaluation." That's one of the first steps of this mindset, isn't it?
absolutely. There's people who don't want to do a search because la 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 la. They want to hear the negative thing. And here's this straight odds. 80 to 85% of the time when I do a patentability search, I find something close that you didn't know about. And so you just got to be ready. You just got to be ready with, 10 ideas and you're going to be able to work on two of them. That's kind of the odds. And
You, well,
it's
you know what I like though when you do. I've done searches with you before, and I've seen number one, yes, you find stuff you did not find. There's no doubt. And maybe you can't find everything, but you're finding a lot more than you could ever find yourself. And number two, you look at it and give an evaluation of
right,
these are the obstacles here. And I like that. I mean,
right.
you're giving me the opportunity to pivot, to change.
Right.
Because if I
And
don't, I got to deal
and
with this prior art later.
and very often when we're having our, follow-up 30-minute phone call after we do a search, we're talking about those things. Do you have to put your inventor hat back on?
Yeah.
Or maybe just completely. I remember this one lady came to my office and man, we did a search and we found the dead ringer. I mean, it was exactly the same idea as hers. And she left my office crying and I felt bad, but it's like better now than after you spend thousands of dollars on a patent and prototyping and all that stuff. And then she called a few weeks later. She actually called the guy who had the patent on her idea
Yeah.
and bought it from him for $2,000. He wasn't
Okay.
doing anything with it.
Then that was great information to have. See, she pivoted in a
Exactly.
different way.
Yes, she did.
Here's another thing too. Working on this one project with a group of people, they saw a problem, they saw an opportunity, they started designing, but they didn't understand that the current products on the market, why were they built that way? And that's one of those things again of asking why and not be so focused on what you're doing, but ask why is it done this way? Because once they asked that question and we were able to get to people in the industry, they told us exactly why it was done this way. And that allowed them now to change and pivot designs to solve those issues. Okay, so
Right. Right. Yeah, a good example of that is I've done, I don't know how many searches on a U-turn light for a vehicle, right? I mean, people, there's hundreds of these. And there's probably, I don't know, a couple dozen patents on this kind of a concept. So the question is, well, why is it not out there? And the answer is the Department of Transportation doesn't allow it. There's another barrier. And if you start asking why, you'll start finding out these things, right?
But
Uh,
for people like us,
oh,
that when you hear an idea like that, immediately we're like, okay, you're trying to change an industry. You have automotive
oh,
companies, you have regulatory companies. Hell no,
what a
that's not going
hurdle.
to work.
Oh,
Huh?
so many hurdles.
Oh,
Yeah.
so many, but see, but when you haven't done this for a long time, you don't immediately see those
Mhm.
hurdles. But the longer you do this, and the more volume you can do, the more ideas you can come up with, the more evaluations you can do on your own or with the help from somebody else, the better you get at this. But if you never flex that
I,
muscle and you just come up with one idea and you never come up with more, you're not flexing that muscle. You're not seeing these things. It's something you need to learn.
I I think there's a big value in questioning why is something done this way. Because another project years and years ago was my rotating label with weight-based dosing, that you were going to dial in the weight of your child. It was going to give you the correct dosing per the weight, not per the age, because the FDA did age. Well, well, it's really the weight of a child for cough syrup. It's not the age, it's the weight. Because if you could underdose or overdose, and you could end up in the ER if you're not careful. Now that just made perfect sense, but the obstacle was that the FDA didn't want to do that, and they hadn't done that. They did age for so many years. To have them change it, it wasn't going to happen because they wanted some tolerance in there, and that tolerance wasn't really good for the health of the child. So no matter how hard we tried, we were never going to get the FDA to be behind it. And knowing that obstacle at the very front of something, you might go, is that a fight we want to have? Is it even possible to overcome that? Is it impossible for the FDA to say we were wrong, we're making a change? Is that going to happen? So I think it's okay to question those things. And the company didn't question it, and they still move forward. And that's a whole nother story of they probably should have looked at it a little bit more carefully. Yeah.
Well, and that's also why having a community of like-minded inventors is so helpful. I remember when we were doing Inventors Forum in Orange County, we have 50, 60 people show up. And a lot of these people knew the answers to those questions.
Mm.
And I know that inventors groups are kind of waning now, but man, if there's a way to get a group of people, even entrepreneur clubs or whatever, that can be helpful because now you've got people who are not, invested in you personally telling you based on their experience what they think. It'd be very helpful.
Yeah, this final takeaway, you guys, and we're going to open up for questions because we have plenty of time tonight. I think it's probably one of the most important mindsets because Kevin, how many ideas? I mean, if you look at this, if you look at the numbers of how many products that are successful in the marketplace or on Amazon, it's not a big number. They do a lot of volume, but there's a lot of ideas that never really make it. And you have to realize it all comes down to maybe questioning all along the way, right? And making sure you're making good decisions. I would say that was probably one of the biggest reasons why people either don't pivot or change or do something, and before you know it, they've gone down that road too long and they can't recover from it, from time and energy. They just get tired that they've spent all this energy and it doesn't really work because they're later they figure out the obstacles, or maybe they never even do. They always wonder why, and they keep on trying to push that rock up a hill.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hey, so if you guys want to start typing your questions into the chat, that would be great. Before we do that, though, I want to mention something in this same space. Um, to get to the core of things, before you file a patent, before you do anything, you might want to do a marketing piece. So just to see if people even understand what the heck your product is and what their reactions are to it. So if you do a one-page sell sheet, and it's what I call Stephen's heard me share this before, it's called a laptop test. And you can only do this, you can do this with people that are a-holes, they're not cool, they're super supportive, they're super critical, or they're in between. It doesn't matter. Any type of person will work because you're going to go by facial gestures and questions they ask. So you put this marketing piece, it could be a video or it could be a sell sheet, but it has to be somebody that's you've never talked to them about the product before. Could be friends or family or strangers, okay? Put it on the computer, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, you stand behind it, you pull it up and you look at their face and you see if they're like, or they, oh, yeah. You see what their expressions are. And when they start asking questions, you don't answer them. You just let them keep asking questions. So now it could be because your marketing's poor, right? Okay. So this is good to refine your marketing. But if your marketing's pretty good and they're still asking questions, they're kind of like, why would I need this? Or what is this for? Or who would buy this? It's very, very telling. So a lot of people, they really do the marketing at the very end. But if you came up with an idea and you piece together some sort of sell sheet or a video about the product, you don't even have it. It's just a rendering or it's something crude in a video that you made, and you made a crude prototype and you're showing it using it and you're talking about it. Something short. If it's a video under 60 seconds. If it's a sell sheet, a one-page sell sheet, and see how people react to the marketing. Because reacting to marketing is very different than reacting to listening to you ramble about it. That's not the same thing. If you're just rambling, they're trying to be supportive and this and that, and you're explaining. You want to pay full attention to their facial expressions and the questions they ask. So the point here is try to do the marketing very early as best you can. Show it to some friends and family or some strangers. Get them to sign an NDA. You can't have talked to them about it before and see what their reaction to it is. And you might think this is just the greatest thing in the world. And you're a carpenter, you're a woodworker, you're on the weekend and you think it's great, but you show it to other woodworkers and they're like, I don't need that, but take it with a grain of salt, because they might just be very judgmental. But you'll at the very least you'll see if they understand your product. And they're like, why the hell would I want that?
We,
Or, oh, this is really cool.
well,
You know?
Andrew, you know what I do? Some of the projects I work on, um, they're it's in the packaging industry and consumables, and it's very expensive, and it's really hard to get a company to go, yes, let's do this. There's just too much risk, and there's going to be a lot of testing and everything else. So I I know this one big obstacle because I'm even curious too. So there's some techniques. One of the techniques I do, and we've talked a lot about this at different times. It's called pull through marketing. I show it to a customer to get interest to see if they're willing to carry it or purchase it right? Because it all comes down at the very end. Do you want this? Does someone really want this? And I cannot make it. I can't even test it because doing a test would be like $1 million. I can't even do that.
You mean a retailer? When you say customer,
It
you
could
mean
be
a
a
retailer?
retailer. It
Yeah.
could be maybe I'm trying to get to a manufacturer, so I go to a company that's going to sell it. And I try to get a read with the marketing material you just said. Maybe it's a video, maybe it's a sell sheet. Is it big enough? Is my solution so important that they would drop everything they're doing, spend the money to help bring it to market? Right. And that's a test. That's what I do to let me know I'm on track too. It,
Yeah.
it says, okay, am I right? Are my assumptions right? Okay. Am I, is my gut telling me I'm right? So, sometimes you can go down to a retail store on a Saturday and ask the manager, hey, do you have a second? I shop here all the time. Hey, pull up your, your laptop and go, hey, let me show you an idea here. What do you think about that? Now, realize you should protect it. Maybe sign an NDA, which they probably won't do. Maybe you filed a PPA, but that's someone that's in the field. That's someone that knows the customer. And I'm not asking for a purchase order, but what I'm asking, would your would your customer want this?
Yeah, and if they say
So,
it's on aisle 5, you've learned something.
well, that too, right? So,
Or if they're not understanding the point of difference, Stephen, sometimes like you've got a point of difference, but you're not making it clear. There could be a whole
right.
bunch of other products that are fairly similar, and if they instantly go, "Oh, there's other things that are like this, but yours has this too," like, "Ooh, that's good," and I like it, right?
So not only do
Mm.
you have to have very good marketing material, which is not easy to do, you've got to get to the right people to ask, right? And and take that feedback and decide, is that information valid? Is that right? I know we have someone here, Eric's here, and I always like to use Eric's a good example because he's got a great product. All these companies showed interest, and then when he started talking to them, some of them gave him some really amazing feedback that now allowed him to pivot a little bit, change a little bit, and not be so married to that one design because that one design could sink it. But getting to the right people to go, all right, my assumptions were right, people love it, but something wasn't quite right. And those experts were probably able to put it on track. So I guess what I'm saying is this mindset is a way to make sure you're on track, right? To make
Mm.
sure your assumptions are right. It's being very practical, uh, but also, doubting all your assumptions.
And sometimes you can determine early on before you start reaching out to companies if you're on track. And then other times, as Steven said, it happens as you approach companies, and that's okay. And most inventors, they're not really in that mindset that, oh, I might need to make adjustments, or I'll probably need to make adjustments, or I'm open to hearing about what they don't like about it is what they do like, because they're not really going to give you much feedback if they completely don't like it. They usually give you feedback if they kind of like it, but they're a little concerned about this or that, right? So the first question here was from earlier from Scott. What is the best way to quickly vet ideas? Stephen, what is your favorite way, or Kevin, to quickly vet ideas? Maybe this is it. Let's just say at the very initial stages. One thing that we were talking about is, do I have enough potential licensees? Do I have one company, or do I have 16 or 20 or
It,
25?
it could be as much as how big is the market? Is the audience big enough? How many licensees are there? Can it be manufactured? Do they have equipment? Is it going to be too expensive? It doesn't fit in a certain price point in other products. Is the point of difference not great enough versus the competition? Is it too similar? It doesn't stand out. Does it have a wow factor? Is it, these are just practical things to ask yourself at the very beginning. Or is it truly new? I think Kevin said this, on aisle 5, you'll see the same thing. I think what's really crazy, we always say the first step is do you really have a new idea? And do a Google image search, maybe a Google shopping search, maybe a prior art search. Is it really new? Because at the end of the day, I don't think it has to be completely new. I think it can be a small improvement on something that came out years ago, maybe, or have enough value that's going to solve a problem that I have that people are going to, yeah, I want that. So I think there's things that you can ask yourself along the way. Yeah.
And those are all in different areas, right? There's, the patents, there's the marketing, there's the manufacturability, there's the wow factor. So you might give a score to each one of those. And if you're getting high scores on all of them, that's a good thing, right? But you've got a lot of different areas you got to look at to quickly vet a product. That's
But
not simple,
but most people aren't doing that.
right.
No. And you know when you would do it ideally, Stephen? Probably none of you did this, but this is ideally when you come up with your next idea, what you should be doing. Literally, when you come up with an idea within hours, you should be getting on Google Images, Google Shopping, maybe using, if you're okay with AI, searching on AI for that thing. Because the longer you don't do that, the more in love you fall with your version, and then you're not getting on the right track. So within hours, and if it's not within hours, it should be within days. And if it's not within days, it should definitely be within a week or two. You should never, ever let a week go by after coming up with an idea without doing a Google image search, a Google shopping search on all different keywords. And if you're comfortable with AI, using AI to help you find that exact same thing or the other things in the space. And most people don't do that. And that'll save you a ton of heartache and it will help you adjust and come up with different features, different versions and stuff. There is some benefit to not doing that because then you think independently, but most people end up reinventing stuff that's already out there. And it's just a waste of time. Just wasting a ton of time. So that would, Scott, that would be a good thing to do to answer your question.
Yeah. And I would just throw in there also that, you got to be a little careful when you're typing in information about your product into Google. You're giving that to Google, right? So I always tell people don't do a Google patent search on a new search algorithm. I bet they're flagging stuff like that, right? So use the USPTO website if you trust the government, and maybe couch it instead of putting in your solution, ask it to give you solutions to this problem, and see what comes up.
It's interesting. Personally, I don't care. I mean, if you have a car that runs on a liter of gas for a year, okay, don't type that into AI or Google. But if you just have a new barbecue spatula, who the frick cares? I
Yeah,
mean, it's like nobody's out there. Google's not stealing your idea. It's not legal advice. That's just practical.
yeah. There's a
You're gonna
point.
screw, yeah, you're gonna screw yourself if you're all paranoid like that.
Yeah.
But um, let's see. So I'm just looking for some questions here. Everybody on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, type in some questions. I know there's a little bit of a delay, a 2-minute delay, but type in some questions over there too. Um, oh, okay. Well, Richard's asking very specifically, guys. You might have a great idea or a new product, but how do you determine if your product is profitable? Do you look at other ones that are somewhat like it, Stephen? Or like, how do you determine if it's going to be profitable for your potential licensee? What do you do?
Well, I think that's a great question. Number one is if I'm going to, I need to know what cost of goods are going to be, what it's going to cost to manufacture, and I need to have an estimate of what that's going to be.
We have no idea, Stephen. Like we're just creative people. We don't know. How do we know
Well,
that?
you can do the basics, and Andrew has said this for 26 years. You can look at something similar, and you can look at yours and go, mine's a little bit different, so it's probably going to be pretty much close. Okay, that's kind of using your gut instincts. You could get a contract manufacturer, have them sign an NDA, and say, hey, I've got this product here. Can you give me some type of quote? And of course, it's going to be really high because it's in the US, but it gives you some type of idea. But I like to have, I think it's more important than ever. This is a great question because I think this is more important today than it ever has been. If I can determine if I can estimate what the manufacturing cost is, I can do some math, figure out what the wholesale price is going to be and maybe what the retail price is. And I can just see, because there's certain ranges that companies are looking for the profit, and it depends on volume too, and all these type of formulas. But you could do that in ChatGPT, regular, type in what's the profit margin on a whatever, and they'll give you some estimates there. And I know those do fluctuate, depends on consumables and things like that. But at the end of the day, if a company's going to license it from you, they're doing the math, guys. They are doing the math. You don't have to do the math, they're doing the math. And they're going to have something quoted. They're going to see what the markup is. They're probably going to show it to a couple buyers at a price point and get a read to see if someone's going to bite. So, but the bigger question is, how many can I sell? I think to me, is really the volume of the numbers. What type of distribution can I possibly get? Can I get in all the Walmarts or Targets? How many stores can I actually get it into? And then if I'm not going to be at retail, can I partner with someone, or do I have the capabilities to get a lot of eyeballs with my own marketing to reach the type of sales numbers I'm looking for? So to me, this is math. This is finance. This is looking at your overhead, my expenses. This is looking at all of it and go, hey, at the end of the day, can I keep the lights on, pay my bills, and like what I'm doing? So that question is a little complicated, I think. Depends on exactly where you are and what your goals are.
But you can do simple things. You're right, Stephen. Like on chat, you could say, I have a pancake spatula. What is the price range for pancake spatulas?
Yeah.
And then it poops it out to you, and it's like $2.99 to $15.99. But you created this pancake spatula. It's got 20 different things on it. It's a Swiss Army knife, and yours is going to be 99.99. Well, that's probably not going to work, But you can literally, before you'd have to go on, which is not that hard. You go on Google Shopping, you type in pancake spatula, you type in price ranges, you could do it. But now it's so easy. Questions
Yeah.
like
And
that on
and
AI,
they're going to give you a range. What's interesting, I have done that before, asked the price of something, and it wasn't, I thought it was pretty accurate. It was, and I don't know how it pulled it, how it found it, but you have to realize it's scraping everywhere, you guys. And that's the other question, that it's pulling information so quickly from so many different sources. That's why I would never add to their source to pull from if it was my invention.
My understanding, it doesn't do that. I think Clark was researching it. I think Kevin was saying something different,
Yeah,
but
you have to
It,
have like a paid account will keep things private, but you got to read the fine print.
well,
yeah, I don't know. I
yeah,
don't
let's
know.
talk about that too, because we'll get off topic real quick. I was told recently that's not right at all either.
Ah,
Yeah. Because I said, I don't, I think there's probably some safeguards. And someone came back and said, no, there's no safeguards. They're keeping everything.
Hmm.
And the reason why I think that's true myself, I don't understand the technology. It's moving too fast. It's changing too fast. And because of that, I don't trust it. And because it can deliver so much content so fast now, I don't know where it's getting it. I don't know how it's getting it. And I'm not going to trust fine print. I just won't do it. So my feeling is, if you got something that's really important to you, don't put your invention on some AI and ask it how to make it better. Or this is my invention. I would not do that. I would stay away from that, or be more vague about it, or ask other questions. I would not do that. Even though they say in fine print they don't do it, I don't trust it. And if anybody can prove me wrong, I like to hear it anytime, guys.
Yeah.
My
So
gut
Stephen,
tells me, oh,
Stephen grew up I grew up in Silicon Valley. I moved 16 years ago. I'm never going back. I mean, Silicon Valley is just full of, I'm sorry, just full of douchebags. They say one thing, they do another thing. At the same time, I differ in that Stephen's opinion, and these aren't legal advice. We're not telling you what to do or anything. If you got a really simple little invention, nobody in the AI or anybody's trying to steal your doorstop or some little fun thing or your kitchen gadget. It provides you so much benefit over and above whatever risk there would be there. In my opinion, I wouldn't hesitate for a second. But if it's some serious stuff, like you
we
know how to
should
run a,
we
yeah,
could
I would
probably
be.
do we could probably do a test. We could have Andrew come up with an invention, talk about it on AI,
Yeah.
Then I could go in later to ask about that and see if it pulls up Andrew's invention.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I think
I,
that inventors, you know what inventors do most of the time? This is a big, power mindset type of thing, because that's what we're talking about here. Most inventors rip themselves off out of their own fears. There's so many people preaching. What we've been doing for 26 years, Stephen and Key and myself, is empowering people with information and action steps so they can go beyond what the average inventor does. The average inventor runs to a patent attorney first thing, throws a bunch of money at them, and then they just sit on the patent. Maybe they make a prototype, but they never reach out to companies. They never really monetize it. And so, I think that we don't want to preach fear, but everything Stephen's saying is probably true. I don't trust the Silicon Valley douchebags either. They're terrible. I don't
well,
trust any of that.
I
But if you have a simple idea, it's not like a bazillion-dollar idea, you know, what are the what does it matter?
well, I think there's a principle here, though, the guys, that just if you have ideas and if they're worth something to you, treat it as such.
Yeah.
Fair
That's
enough.
all.
Yeah.
Treat it as such. Because if you're going to spend time and money on that project, treat it with respect and treat it that has value. That's all I'm saying. So, but
And I
Andrew's
like
right. I
this. I
mean,
miss this, Stephen, because like back in the day when we did YouTube, you and I would argue about different topics, so we get people's minds turning. It's been a long time since we've done this.
well,
So I miss that, by the way. A lot of people are like, I wish
it,
you guys would come back and
it,
argue on YouTube about different things so you can get my brain going.
it,
Um,
well, I also think that, well, it happened to me, Kevin. I posted something on a project I was working on with some other inventors, and they posted the product on their website. And then they tried to file IP, but it was after a year.
Mhm.
And the patent examiner used the Wayback Machine and
Yep.
found the darn thing.
Archive.org. They use that a lot. Yep.
Like,
mhm.
how did they find
Can
it on
you?
some remote page, someplace
Yeah.
weird? I mean, they found this.
That's Now that's very different. To me, I'm more concerned about that than AI personally. So either Kevin or Steven, can you talk about the Wayback Machine? Can you talk about how Kevin should talk about this? Patent examiners can go back and see if websites or things existed. That's public disclosure.
Yep.
That is very clear. And we talked about not wanting to make you guys paranoid, but here you go. So Kevin, can you explain that?
Yeah, so it's just important that you understand when you publicly disclose, you post something on your website or your Facebook or something, it will be very hard to, ever erase that. The Wayback Machine, archive.org, takes pictures of things, and I can go back 20, 30 years and see the websites I was working on, in the 90s, and it still has it. So it's, once it's out there, it's hard to, get that genie back in the bottle. And examiners are amazingly good at finding stuff. My cousin had an idea that he was selling very well, and we were coming up on the 1 year deadline for the grace period. You have a year to file your patents. So we hurried up and filed a patent, and the examiner found one of his beta testers had uploaded a video exactly how you install this and use it. It was a firearms product. And it was uploaded like 54 weeks before we filed, and we were dead in the water. It was the same exact product. So they're good at finding that stuff.
Mhm.
And who knows what the future is going to bring. That's all
Yeah,
I'm saying. Yeah.
fair enough. Let's see what we got here. Wow, we got a bunch. So Rob's such a smart. He, I invented the internet and then sat on it too long. uh, somebody was asking about influencers. So I don't, influencers don't on the surface don't really make sense when you're licensing because you have to make public, we're talking about public disclosure, right? So going to an influencer and if they like it, that's more like when a company is marketing a product and you're ready to put it out there, you can go to an influencer and they can mention it and talk about it. But going to influencers when you're looking to license doesn't really make any sense. Um, you could go to the influencer, show it to them, and then tell potential licensee, hey, this influencer loves it, and they'll pitch it. You could do something like that. But sometimes people get confused. They think people liking their invention and putting it up on Facebook means something. It means absolutely nothing. Like what Stephen and Kevin were saying earlier, when people open up their wallet, that means something. 100 people liking what you posted about your
Well,
invention, which you shouldn't be posting publicly anyway,
well,
on Facebook means nothing.
it has a little bit of value, but when I'll give this quick story here if we have a minute. Do we have any time? Are we out of
Yeah,
time?
well, we're at 6:01, but we can close it
Okay.
out then.
One way to test when I was making these little guitar picks, when I first designed the guitar picks, put them in the store, they didn't sell. And because I trusted my own gut, I knew what was going to sell. I was wrong. So I said, this time I'm not going to do that. So I studied the marketplace, talked to kids, came up with 10 designs, went to 5 music stores and put a kind of a questionnaire. Kids, which ones would you purchase? And if you fill it out, I'll send you free picks later. And I gave the guy behind the counter $20 to get the kids to pick. Well, what happened was they picked and they kept on picking the same design. It was clearly that was the winner. And that's the one we went and had the tooling made, took it to a show, and it became our bestseller forever. So there are ways of limiting your exposure to get some feedback if you're on the right track. And that's what this is all about, is really testing a little bit. Is my gut right? Because sometimes I can tell you you'll probably be wrong more than you're right. Let the market tell you. And I think that's what Kevin said. The market will tell you if you're right and wrong, and they'll tell you pretty quickly.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the other thing,
Definitely.
just remember that everyone has an idea, but that's just one data point. I mean, people ask me marketing advice all the time, and I tell them nobody pays me for my marketing advice, and rightly so. But I'll tell them what I think, but it's just one data point, and I can be wrong. I usually am wrong when it comes to marketing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Ed asked what guitar pick. That was the skull pick. At the time, skulls were everywhere. Kids loved them. We called it the grave picker, and it just worked instantly. Kids were right.
Yeah, and the ones that were a little risque, like it's a bikini one or something, they didn't want that at all. They wanted the skulls, right?
I thought
And
I
yeah,
thought something else. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll didn't work. It was something else. But let the market, and if you can find out somehow, yeah, if you can. So question everything you're doing. Be practical. Don't fall in love with your ideas, and hopefully you're going to pick the right ones.
Let the best ones percolate up.
Oh, and let me drop you guys probably have the link already, but I'm going to drop the link to the takeaway for this session in the chat. And even though we'll leave, I'll stay on for a few minutes so you guys can click on that link and go to the landing page. We're going to change the schedule because next week is Thanksgiving Eve, the day before Thanksgiving. So we're gonna get rid of that one. We're gonna push it out a week. And so that schedule that you see there, we're not doing one next week because we figured people won't be attending so much. But I'll wait. Don't end the meeting, Stephen and Kevin. You can leave. So you
Okay.
guys have a chance to go in the chat and click on that link, get the takeaway for this session. So the download. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Andrew. Bye,
Thanks, guys.
everybody.
Keep
Everybody
inventing,
have a happy
everybody.
Thanksgiving. Bye,
Happy
everybody.
Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.